Welcome to the Cultivating Business Growth podcast, bringing you bi-weekly discussions designed to help you grow your business and create the lifestyle you desire. Elevate your business with proven strategies from virtual CFOs, CPAs, and business advisors. We discuss real-world challenges solved with actionable steps that get you the results you need both in business and building the life you deserve.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cultivating Business Growth, brought to you by Willow Virtual CFO. A lot of business owners want more accountability from their teams, but they're afraid of becoming controlling, overbearing, or constantly checking up on their people. In this episode, we're discussing how to build a culture where people take ownership, communicate clearly, and follow through without creating resentment or micromanaging every detail. Thank you for joining me today, Jaime, for this discussion on accountability and trying not to become a micromanager as a business owner, which is really hard to do.
I love this topic. This is one of our core values, and I think accountability is lacking in a lot of teams. And so I think this conversation is really relevant, and hopefully we can, hit a lot of good topics that can be put into use right away.
Yeah. And we always like to start, or usually like to start with the why of why is this important? And I think we've seen it time and time again through our own businesses and helping others. Why would you say are some of the most important things that impact and why accountability is important for teams?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think business owners are really overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, a lot to manage. And if you don't have good accountability within that team, that causes more stress. Teams are stretched really thin. If we don't have enough people to do all the work, but we have a lot of work, we kind of overload some of our team members, and then they're not sure what to do when and what's more important. And so, communication lapses also cause frustration and not knowing what's supposed to happen. And I don't think it typically happens intentionally, right? It's just you're getting your work done, you're doing what you need to, lots of things are happening, and nobody's stopping to say, hey, what's my priority, right? What's 1, 2, 3 on this list, or when is this due? And so we got to make sure that our team knows what to expect, what that timeline is, what we expect, and then they need to know that they need to give us feedback, right? Teams need to give feedback to their managers as well. That's not really going to happen. I can still remember when I started work and I would get projects handed over to me. I need this in 2 hours. And I was always like, okay, I'm brand new. I don't know. I'm just going to say yes. Yeah. And 6 hours later, I'm still struggling to get it done. I'm just like, you need to be able to speak up and say, hey, I can get something done in 2 hours, but I need more time. And sometimes you don't know that up front. You can say, hey, this is a new project. I'm not sure how long this is going to take me, but it's probably going to be more than 2 hours. Is that going to work for you? Have the conversation so the manager can realize oh, hang on. You know what? Maybe I need to give this to a higher level person. I'm not thinking, you know what I mean? Because everybody's moving so quickly, I think, in today's world, that sometimes just asking the questions and, hey, I need some more time, or I'm not sure, or at that 2 hour mark, hey, this is how far I've gotten. I need another 2 hours. Is that going to work? Or what do we want to do now? So I feel like making sure you're upfront, honest, help, giving feedback, because sometimes managers just aren't thinking through, who they're giving it to or what they're asking. And so I think it's important that communication is flowing both ways so that you have more understanding of what the expectations are, what you're needing to do, what the timeline is, instead of just maybe guessing and hoping assuming which happens a lot, right? Okay.
Yep. And maybe accountability isn't an issue for you with a small team, but as you grow, that's when things kind of you see the gaps widen. Right. In some areas, and I'm sure you've seen this a lot in helping businesses as they're in that growth period. So why have you seen that accountability tends to kind of break down in that growth stage?
Yeah, so I think one of the things when you're small, it's easier to have that accountability or know what's going on, right? Because you have a small team and you have 2 people and it's you, and you all know who's doing what when, because there's 3 of you, and it's just easier. And you're communicating well and you're either working together in the same office or you're working through Zoom or whatever, but you're meeting often and everybody knows whatever everyone's doing. You start adding another person. You got
Layers.
5 to 7 people. Well, now we don't always know. And we're trying to put that, typically the business owner is trying to kind of get away from some of the detailed stuff because you're needing to stay back. You're needing to look at things big picture. Mm-hmm. So, it starts to get really hard to know what everyone's doing, to know if everybody's accountable. Is everybody doing what they're supposed to? Or how come we don't know that this was due on this date because I forgot to tell you the due date, you didn't ask the due date, and now we're all frustrated. Yep. So I think as you grow and you have more layers, as you said, and more team members, it just gets hard to know everything just by knowing everything. Mm-hmm. You have to put together more processes or documentations or project management tools. I think that's where a lot of that project management tools can really help because you have a place to go to look and I can see where this person is. And now I can say, oh, can I get a status here? I see it's not as far as long as I thought. Did we have a miscommunication? What's, you can't have it by tomorrow, but can you have it done by Friday? Right. Again, a lot of this is communication. I think a lot of people get worried, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not going to say that I'm not done. Yeah. But it's a lot of lack. It's not pointing fingers. It's how do we just make things better? Hey, it's not going to happen tomorrow like everybody hoped. Yeah. But when can we have it done in a reasonable time that it's done well and we can kind of, compromise, right? So I think having conversations, so communication is huge. Having processes in place can really help. But people don't want to have those tough conversations, right? I'll just put my head down. I'll get it done real fast and get it, And so I think we really want to encourage, I think as we do for accountability, we want to encourage discussion, communication, pushing back sometimes, right? Hey, I don't think this can be done in this time frame. Here's why. Don't just say I can't do it. I won't do it. Here's what I think. I'll do my best to get it done by Friday, but this one part, I'm relying on somebody else and I can't guarantee that person's going to get back to me quickly. I don't know if they're in the office. They may be on vacation. So what are the things that you can have a conversation about and not just, I can't get it done or things like that, but to be accountable for it. So I think communication is really important. And making sure that you ask too, as somebody who's given work, if I try to remember to give deadlines or timelines and, if it's really important, it's really important and maybe not, but you don't want to not have any kind of timeline. In the next month is, okay, so I know if something else pops up that's a priority, I can switch to that. Right. But if you're not given that timeline, ask, right? Hey, what is the timeline? What is the amount of hours it should take me to do this? Have those conversations because then everybody's on the same page and then you can think through things maybe you didn't. Your manager may be like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I need this Friday, but you're off Thursday. I don't know how, we're not going to have that happen. Let's have it out in the open. So I think people don't, they want to just say yes. They want to do what they need to do. They want to do kind of, what their manager needs, but sometimes it's just not possible. So having the communication is the next best thing. So everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, agreed. So as you're building a team or learning how to delegate, it can be difficult because there is kind of a fine line of creating a culture of accountability and giving the team that ownership and micromanagement. Because it's very you're either super hands-on or totally hands-off. And where's that line? How do you find that? And what's the difference?
Right. Yeah. And we want to kind of be in the middle, right? We don't want to be micromanaging. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. Nobody wants somebody asking them a question every step of the way of a project.
It's not fun to micromanage either.
Right. Yeah. And you don't want to do it because you want them to take ownership. So, we look at accountability as clarity plus ownership plus follow through. So it's kind of 3 steps. If you're not getting that from your team members, then you might have to do something different, right? You might have to have a conversation about accountability. You might, have to say, hey, these are the 3 things I need from you to make sure that we are getting to the end goal. So, we don't want to, micromanage. It's not a fun place to be. But I think that sometimes gets, created by fear or lack of trust. We've all had it happen where somebody tells you, oh yeah, I'll get that done for you. and then they don't. And then you're like, shoot, what should I have done?
Cool.
I trusted them. I assumed they would take care of it. And so I think when you get burned, you're kind of like, you know what? I'll just ask 16 times because then I'll feel better about knowing if it's happening. But obviously that creates, tension within the team too. So we don't want to do that. We want to really make sure that, hey, we might need to check in periodically on a bigger project or get a weekly status report or, ask for those things that are proactive from one person to you. So you're like, I need to know on Fridays what's going on with this project so that if we need to make a change, and then, that gives me time to make those changes or decide I need a conversation. I don't know that you want to have a meeting all the time. It depends on what, how big of a project it is or what work you're having done. But, starting with just an update can be really helpful. I know I've done that in the past where I'm like, I just need an update. And then I can be like, whoa, wait, what's happening? I need to follow up because sometimes our team doesn't know when is the appropriate time to bring it up a level or ask for extended help. So you want to be in the know a little bit. So I definitely think asking for updates, checking in periodically, and reminding them, hey, if you run across something that's complicated or difficult or that's starting to take more time, please talk to me. Trying to make sure that the communication is open, the environment is one of, I want you to ask for help when you need help so that we're not all stressing out, not getting things done. So I think it's really about the environment and the, that you're working in. And those, like I said, here with our team, I always feel like we are pretty good about this. We're very open. Sometimes I can't get things done. Sometimes I need to move things. How do we need to make this work? Because the end goal is the goal of the project, not, hey, Tammy over here didn't get her work done on time.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
everybody look at Tammy and tell her what a bad job she's doing.
That's not the goal. Like, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that for Tammy, for the team. Like, that doesn't help anybody. So, like, how do we all get to our goal and how do we communicate? And I think there's a lack of communication in the world today. I think people pull back. They don't want to say as much. People, can get, angry, can get upset, but you're like, the more communication you get, I feel like the less stress and tension is around, as long as you're communicating openly and professionally.
Yeah. And I think we've all been in those situations of like someone was shamed or like I was shamed for not getting things done. And it's now like coming out the other side of it and a more managerial or ownership role. I'm like, because I get embarrassed if I forget to ask about something, right? And it doesn't get done. And somebody else, so I'm like, it was probably out of like their own embarrassment and they felt like they should have checked in. And then it was coming out as like, it's coming out as anger toward you because, oh no, you forgot it. But that's where that lack of communication and lack of like a system or a process. And then we're all human. So that emotion comes out and that shame. And so avoiding those can be so instrumental to a healthier culture because it's so important to not have those moments in meetings where everybody's like doing the finger pointing because it's not a healthy environment to be in.
Yeah. And within our team too, like we do a lot of work that, is timely, deadline driven, sometimes has to be done quickly. And we recently provided somebody with an amount that was incorrect for like a tax return that they had to do. And we were like, that's weird. And then, we all looked at it quickly. Nobody caught that we had missed the decimal spot. And so, it was a pretty big difference. And thank goodness, but sometimes things just get missed because you're doing it. You do have a process and it hits all the buttons. And like, sometimes you got to step back and re-review. But what did we do? Like, it was one of my team members who did it. And I said, hey, that's on us. We didn't notice that, because the client, finally was like, hey, I think we need to use this different percentage. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're totally right. We overlooked that. Like, we're not perfect. We are doing a lot of things. We're trying to help a lot of people. And we're human. So, and my team member was like so upset. She's like, oh my God, how did I miss this? This is, and I'm just like, it happens. Like, we're trying to do our best, like it happens, but be honest. Just let the client know that, we appreciate that they caught that and we're not sending the wrong amount of money into the tax group that we don't want to. So, we just need to be honest about things and say, hey, yeah, that was on us. we apologize for that. That will not happen again. We'll make
Here's
notes of
where
that.
the hole was in our system.
Yeah.
And
We
allowed
just
that to
didn't.
happen. Let's
And
fix that.
for instance, in this case, for us, like we usually have returns from prior years to look at and say, oh, here's what the amounts were. This is what we paid in the past. We didn't have anything. They didn't have anything. Those are the things. We didn't have our usual like guardrails of like, oh, we compare it to last year. We look at what's changed. What do we need to do? And so, when those processes kind of fall apart or you just don't have access to some of that, errors can happen. But again, I think being communicative and owning those things, like, hey, that's on us. We apologize. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that happens a lot, especially working with numbers and in a lot of different areas. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to forget to do something really important. You're not going to do it. You don't want to say, oh, sorry, that was your fault. Oh, is my team member over here didn't do her job. I'm sorry about that. Like none of that looks
good. It's not a good look for you as a business owner to do that type of thing.
We all own it. And as a manager, at least in my book, if my folks make a mistake and I don't catch it, it's my mistake. It's not their mistake. So there's why there's levels of review. And so I think if our team knows that we have their back, we're not going to hang them out to dry, that we communicate to the client clearly, we all move on, right? Everybody makes mistakes. Like we're trying the best. There's lots of moving parts, as every business owner out there knows. There's 15 hats you're trying to wear. Some hats fit nicer and look better than others, right? So
some you're just like trying to staple on your head so it stays.
Exactly. You're like, yes, let's put the HR hat on today. But yeah. So I think I think it's really important to just have those conversations, be honest, be open, and be, as the leader, how you want your team to handle it. If it were them, if they had somebody under them working on it, you don't want them to be like, well, sorry, again, poor Tammy here, she messed up. That's her fault. That doesn't look good. The client's not impressed with like, oh, somebody else did that.
Right.
It wasn't my fault.
It's your team. Like that's like,
it doesn't matter. It's all, you're one.
Not you. Yeah. And I think that leads us really well into building a culture of ownership, because we started just on the tip of the iceberg there. And I think allowing a culture where that is not only acceptable, but like expected of you, right? To take ownership. Right. And if they see that it's coming from the top, that you take ownership in front of the client for that mistake that maybe wasn't yours, maybe it was your team member, right? But they see that, okay,
Right. It allows people to feel safe, to be like, oh my gosh, I found out I made a mistake. And it's a big one, right? Like sometimes they're big. Yeah. A lot of times they're little. It's really not a big deal. But every once in a while, you make a big one. And you're like, holy cow. And sometimes you're like, how did I do that? There's no way I would have done that. But it happened. So I definitely think it's leadership. It starts at the top. Leadership has to be willing to take ownership of their mistakes and be communicative and be accountable and owning everything. It starts there. And then, communication to the team. Hey, this is how we operate. These are the steps we're taking. We need you to tell us. We need you to communicate. We, here at Willow, we have a very flexible work environment. If you need time off to take care of a loved one, if you need some support, we are totally fine with that, but you must communicate. If you don't communicate about it, then that causes way more tension and frustration from everybody. You have to be open. And I feel like we do that, as leaders, we need flexibility too. That's part of why we started this. And so I think that opens it up for the rest of the team to be like, oh, like really, I can do this. And, I always feel like one of the best compliments we get is that we actually live our culture and we don't just say it, where a lot of places are like, yeah, we have lots of balance because that sounds good and it looks good. But no, you can't take that next week off to be with your family, to go on vacation, because that's a super important week here and you have to be here, right? So we've all been part of groups like that. So it's really important to lead from the top, set the good example, encourage people to, whatever your core values and culture is, make sure you're communicating it to everyone. And we do it every month on a team call where we talk about our core values. We talk about what our vision and mission statements are. what are we trying to accomplish? And we need to be reminded often, because day to day gets hectic and busy, and sometimes we forget why we did this, and we're just trying to get work done or more clients and more, product out the door, and whatever those things we're doing. We need to stop and be like, hey, let's remember what we're here to do, how we want to do it. And do we need more people? Because there's just not enough capacity right now to do all the things on the timeline we want, right? They bring up more conversations about, hey, why can't my team get the work done? And if your team is telling you, hey, I can't get this done on this timeline, maybe it's a sign that you need more help or more people or need to spread work out differently. So, having open lines of communication can really help your team achieve the goals that they set out.
You're really lining up these segues for me, like perfectly, because now I want to talk about the tough conversations and course correction, and having a process like that where you have the floor for the team to be able to come to you and have those conversations is super helpful. But what are some other things that you recommend, or some other things that you've seen that allow or help ease the stress of tough conversations? Because it is difficult. No matter how much practice you've had, they're still difficult.
Yes, for sure. And I feel like a lot of people do things really, really well most of the time, but every once in a while we're like, they're just not as accountable here. And so it's important. We try to have conversations with our team at least twice a year, where it's a little bit of a review process where we're evaluating their performance, how they're doing, what they're doing. And we have that opportunity to give people feedback. We try to encourage feedback all the time. So like if I see something, kind of big and I need a conversation, we don't say, oh, well, we'll wait, let's wait till October, till our time. No. So if we see things that are in need of a conversation, it doesn't have to be huge, but like, hey, this really needed to be done on time. I was very communicative with you. It wasn't done on time. Can we talk about what happened? Why? Please remember this is important and this is why it's important. So you need to sometimes help team members. Life happens. Like I said, things get out of whack. We miss deadlines, but the communication is where we really have to have it. So you shouldn't, as a manager, be wondering what's going on. Is it going to get done? We want the upfront communication. And so having those conversations either at the point, because it's necessary at that point, because you don't want to wait 3 months. Remember 3 months ago when that one project didn't come in on time? It doesn't hit as well. We need to be talking to people throughout.
Bad as the team member too,
right? Hey, you had this on a list somewhere.
Like you've been like holding this in this whole time. Like what else? What other mistakes have I made during that time that I wasn't aware of? That they're not even listening to that at that point, because their brain's like, oh my gosh, why would they have waited? Like they're thinking out. Yeah.
And so I definitely recommend doing it as it happens. And we encourage our team to do that too. Here we try to, if I see something that I'm like, hey, that was not handled properly, like let's jump on a phone call. Here's what I want to see next time. Here's why I didn't love this. Like, here's why it's not a good impression maybe on the client, things like that. So having those conversations. But if you don't do that, or you just don't have the opportunity, or you need a time to sit, that's where I think those timed performance reviews can really help. Think about it. Hey, let's put some things down. Here are some things I've noticed are trending. Maybe it's more of a trend and not a one-time issue. Here's what I need to see. Here's why we need to see it that way. So I think it's really important. We want to, when we have those conversations too, we want to talk about like what pieces are not done and what we expect, versus, getting in trouble, pointing fingers.
Yeah.
Again, you did it wrong. You're the problem. That's not how it works, right? They're part of our team. We need to show them and coach them up if they're not doing things in an appropriate way. And over time, if they're not the right person on their team, that's a different conversation, right? Longer term. But you want to have good conversations along the way. And so, accountability is important. If you have a problem with somebody over and over, at some point, maybe they're just not going to be that right fit. But I think a lot of people will make improvements after conversations. Like, oh, I didn't realize this thing I'm doing is causing you stress down the line too. So I think the open communication really helps kind of avoid that and clean that up.
Yeah. So in addition to, just the general practice of addressing things as they happen and that proactive communication, what are some other practical systems that can help accountability that a business owner could put in place today or this week?
Yeah. So one thing I do like, especially if I have multiple team members, is to have a weekly meeting where you're looking at priorities for everybody, goals for everybody. What is everybody doing? What's important for this week? Because that kind of gives you a little bit shorter viewpoint of like, hey, so do we have any problems? You have an opportunity to have conversations of this isn't on time. So that can really help keep people in the loop. And whether that's your leadership team or if you have a small project going on, a project team meeting. I know when we onboard our clients, we do a weekly meeting at the very beginning, again, just to get everybody on the same page, give us a place to, air grievances. Here's a problem. I'm not getting this from you. So just having that place to have conversations is really important. I think project management tools can really help. Things like a Trello, Asana. We use Carbon here within our firm, helps us manage, deadlines, timelines, work items, we can go and pull a work item and be like, how far along is this? Or why is this not updated? We can tag notes, ask questions, check in. Again, we're not micromanaging along the way, but maybe at this point I'm like, hey, why is the January workflow not done? It's May. Is there a holdup? Are we waiting for something? What's going on? And sometimes, I meant to click that. Okay, great. Let's just, clean those things up. So having those, tools can really help give you insight to what's going on without having to call Tammy and ask her, hey, how far along are you on this?
Or Tammy's listening like, man.
Yeah.
What did I do?
She's great. Tammy is great. Or some KPI dashboards can get created as well. I know in a lot of different financial systems, with AI, they're trying to create a lot of different dashboards. Mm-hmm. You can look at things, how many things are overdue, how many things are on time, different things like that to help, again, project manage a little bit better. So utilize whatever AI tools might be in some of the systems you're already using and leverage those, because that can help you kind of stay on top of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of those things too can help reduce that mental load that leaders feel, because there's no way you're going to keep track of all of that in your head. Like it's just impossible once your business gets to a certain point. So I think those are some great processes to put in place and some things that'll be really helpful for business owners. Is there anything that you'd like to say to wrap up the episode as we come to a close here?
Yeah, I think something to remember is just accountability culture. It's built intentionally, right? You really want to make sure that's either part of your core values, part of how you want your team to work, and make sure you let them know that that's how you want them to work. Because it can really, I think it can make a huge difference. I've seen a lot of teams work without accountability, and it just doesn't work. Your team doesn't function as well. There's a lot of finger pointing, things don't get done. Nobody wants to take ownership for anything. And you just can't make good progress on anything within the company. And I think as the business owner, you want to require that as part of how we operate. Again, nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to always be perfectly accountable, but this is our goal. This is how we want to work. The leaders have to set the tone. They have to be willing to be accountable, hold people accountable, all the things. And that really can make a huge difference, because a lot of the teams that I've worked with that don't have accountability, it's typically the leader doesn't want to hold anybody accountable because they feel bad.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be mean. And you're like, right, but this is a business organization. We have to not be mean. We don't have to be mean, but we have to hold people accountable and we have to be professional about it. But if you don't, it just kind of, it lags any kind of improvement and changes and moving in the right direction that you're trying to kind of get to with your business, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if any of this resonated with you, please feel free to share this episode with any other business owners that you think this could be helpful. I want to invite you to subscribe to Cultivating Business Growth so you don't miss any episodes. And our CFOs are well-versed in leadership and accountability, and not only can help you with your accounting processes and financials, but can help coach you on these types of things too, which is part of the reason why a lot of our clients love us. So feel free to go to willowcfo.com/contact and book a call with us to talk through any issues that you might be having in your growing business. We also have a ton of free resources on our website, so check that out at willowcfo.com. Keep that momentum going, and we will see you next time.